Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. The hallway light was still on when the front door clicked shut. I stood in the kitchen, holding a spoon I wasn't using, staring at a pot of soup I wasn't going to eat. I didn't even like soup, but I made it anyway, because she always said it felt like home. Tonight, I wanted her to feel guilty about leaving it behind. She didn't even glance at it on her way out. She just laughed. Actually laughed, and said, "You made soup? That's cute." And then she was gone. I didn't move. Not for a full 10 minutes. I just stood there like a forgotten lamp in a dusty corner. The kind no one remembers to turn off until it starts to burn too hot. She said she was going to his party. Just a quick overnight thing. Just catching up. Just people I used to know. She always stretched the word just like it made things smaller. Like just meant I shouldn't question it. Like just meant I shouldn't feel the acid in my stomach when she said his name, Corbin. Like it was nothing. She left in heels. High ones. The kind she doesn't wear for me anymore. Her perfume was loud. Her lipstick was precise. She even took the time to double-check her hair in the mirror by the door. The same mirror I once hung with shaky hands and a stud finder I didn't know how to use. Felt rehearsed. Like a scene she'd waited to perform. And me? I stood in the kitchen wearing socks with holes in them, thinking about the way she'd laughed at my soup. I didn't yell. I didn't stop her. I didn't slam the door or call her back. I did what I always do. I folded. Quietly. Pathetically. But then I noticed something. Her second phone. The one she thought I didn't know about. She left it on the windowsill just behind the curtain. Charging. Unattended. Unlocked. And just like that, the soup went cold. I didn't hesitate. The moment I saw her second phone glowing softly against the curtain, something inside me cracked wide open. I wasn't curious. I wasn't hesitant. I wasn't noble. I picked it up with hands that were suddenly steady, like my body knew this moment had been building for months. There wasn't even a passcode. Just a lazy swipe and I was inside her world. I don't know what I expected. Maybe a few old texts, vague flirting, some harmless catching up that I could lie to myself about later. But what I saw didn't leave room for doubt. There were messages. Dozens of them. Not from months ago. Not even days. That morning. From Corbin. "Can't wait to see you tonight. You wearing the black dress? Eyes. He won't know a thing. I'll make sure of it. You remember what you promised me, right?" Winking face. And her replies. "Oh, I remember. Every detail. He's cooking soup. Like that'll stop me from going. I'll leave my ring in the drawer. Like it never happened." I froze. My thumb hovered above the screen as if the messages might change if I looked at them long enough. I wanted them to vanish, to glitch away into some parallel version of reality where this wasn't happening. But they didn't. They just sat there, smug, blinking, real. I sat on the edge of the couch with the phone in my lap and my mouth dry. I don't remember how long I stared at the wall. Long enough for the clock to reset in my head. Long enough for my hands to stop shaking. Long enough to feel something I hadn't felt in years. Anger. Not the loud, explosive kind. Not the movie scene kind. Mine was quiet. Still. Like the way a lake goes still before a storm rolls over it. I didn't scream or break anything. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't even cry. I just breathed in, slow, through my nose, and then out. And then I opened the camera. There were photos. Of course there were photos. Selfies sent between them. Him shirtless, smirking like a villain out of a bad soap opera. Her in that same black dress she was wearing when she left. Only it was pulled slightly off one shoulder, as if it had already begun its journey to the floor. That was the moment I realized something cold and final. She had no intention of coming back tonight feeling guilty. She wanted me to know. Maybe not directly, maybe not through outright confession, but she left the phone. She left the messages. She wanted me to find it. It was her way of punishing me for something I still didn't understand. Her twisted little revenge. And she thought I'd just sit there with my soup and my heartbreak, waiting like a fool for the sound of her keys in the door. But not this time. I got up. I took the phone. I grabbed a notebook and a pen. And I started writing. Not a letter, not a breakup note. No, I started listing everything in this house that was mine. Everything I'd paid for. Everything she took for granted. Because if she wanted a performance, I was finally ready to give her one. And she'd never see it coming. The clock read 9:42 p.m. when I finished the list. It was longer than I expected. I had to flip the page twice. Furniture, electronics, books she never read but always insisted looked mature on our shelves. My tools, though she never let me use them without calling someone else to fix it right. Even the little things. The plant I kept alive for 3 years while she forgot its name. The old Polaroid camera she pretended to like only because her influencer friend said it was aesthetic. All of it. Mine. I left the list on the kitchen counter next to her untouched soup and her forgotten phone, both of which were growing colder by the minute. I didn't write a single emotional sentence. No, I'm sorry, or how could you? Just item after item, like a grocery list written in quiet fury. Because I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to beg. I wanted to disappear in a way that would echo. It wasn't just about leaving. It was about leaving nothing behind she could pretend to love. I took what I could carry. I didn't even pack. I just opened drawers and took whatever was mine. Passport, charger, spare keys to my old truck. The stash of cash I'd kept tucked inside a beaten-up copy of Mice and Men. Ironic now, I guess. I didn't look at our wedding photo on the wall. I didn't stand in the doorway for one last glance. I just left. I didn't go far, not yet. I parked 2 blocks away in the lot behind an old laundromat. The kind of place that smells like wet concrete and lost time. From there, I could still see the corner of our street. Her street. Not mine anymore. I sat there in the dark with the windows cracked, listening to the faint sounds of a city that didn't care about my marriage. I thought about calling someone. But who? I had friends, sure, but not the kind you call at 10 p.m. with a bag of tangled chargers and a heart full of shredded dignity. So I waited. At 12:13 a.m., my phone lit up. Her name. A single message. Hey, where are you? No apology. No explanation. Just that. Like I was late picking her up from a movie. Like she was the one left behind. I didn't reply. At 12:19, another ping. Did you take my phone? Then a call. I declined it. Then another. And another. I turned the volume off and stared at the glowing screen until it dimmed. She was panicking now. Not because she missed me, but because she lost control of the story. And I had it. That night, I didn't sleep in a bed. I curled up in the passenger seat of my truck, hoodie over my head, her phone buzzing like a trapped fly beside me. Could have blocked her. Could have shut it off. But I wanted to feel the tremors. I wanted to hear the chaos unfold. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't the one begging for answers. I was the silence. And by the time she opened the front door and saw what I left behind, it would already be too late. By morning, her calls had stopped. The silence didn't mean she gave up. It meant she was thinking, calculating, probably imagining me sulking somewhere, waiting for her to come home and offer me some watered-down excuse about how nothing happened and how I was reading too much into things again. That had always been her favorite line when she needed to reset the narrative without owning anything. But this time, there would be no narrative to control. Not anymore. Around 8:40 a.m. I circled back toward the house. Not to go in. I just wanted to watch. I parked across the street, low in the seat, sipping gas station coffee, while the sun lit up the windows of the home that no longer felt like mine. I don't know what I expected her to look like. Disheveled? Guilty? Regretful? But when she stepped out of the black SUV that dropped her off, she was laughing. Laughing. She had her phone in her hand, the other one, and she was still in that black dress, though now it looked slightly wrinkled, like it had been on and off more than once. Her makeup was smudged just enough to tell a story, but not enough to embarrass her. She didn't even try to sneak in. She walked to the door like someone who had absolutely nothing to hide. Like someone who assumed the world still bent to her version of reality. She opened the door, stepped inside. I waited, and just like I imagined, it didn't take long. 12 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Where the hell are you? Then 5 seconds later. What is this? I pictured her seeing the empty spaces on the wall, the shelf stripped bare, the drawer where her wedding ring had been replaced with the note. My list. I imagined her looking for her backup phone only to remember she left it charging. She probably ran to the nightstand, opened the drawer, found nothing but her own echo. And then came the real message. You went through my stuff? You're insane. There it was. Not an apology. Not remorse. Accusation. Because in her mind, I was still the villain. For reacting. For uncovering. For not playing my assigned role as the quiet, dependable husband who forgave everything and stayed through anything. I sat there in the truck, her forgotten phone in my lap, scrolling through old messages. I found one from 2 weeks ago where she told Corbin, "He's too soft to leave. He'll sulk and stew, but he'll stay. He always does." And that was the last little ember I needed. I grabbed the prepaid envelope I'd picked up the night before. A blank, nondescript package already addressed to her office. Inside, I placed a copy of the photos, a printed screenshot of the messages, and the final page of my list, the one labeled "Things You Never Noticed I Took." The phone went in last. I sealed it, drove to the post office, dropped it in the box. No drama, no text, no final word. And as I walked back to the truck, the air felt cleaner. Not lighter, not yet, but clearer. Like when a storm finally breaks after weeks of pressure. I knew this wasn't over. She wasn't the kind to go quiet. She'd scream, manipulate, rewrite, play the victim. But none of that mattered now, because the part of me that used to care what she thought had finally stopped existing. By noon, I had 14 missed calls, 3 voicemails, and a stream of text messages that felt like I was reading someone unraveling in real time. At first, it was rage, short, cold messages like, "You had no right," and "This is abusive." Then came the passive-aggressive attempts to bait me back into a conversation. "I just want to talk," and "We can fix this if you stop acting crazy." Classic Dahlia. Start the fire, then blame the smoke for ruining the furniture. But I wasn't answering. Not because I was trying to punish her, but because I genuinely had nothing left to say. I had always been the one trying to fix things. I had written long, apologetic paragraphs during past fights, even when she was the one who'd crossed a line. I had cooked dinners after being ignored for days. I had bought flowers for anniversaries she forgot. I had held on like a man gripping a rope that was already on fire. This time I let go. I was staying at a roadside motel 2 towns over. The kind of place that smelled like bleach and desperation. The curtains barely closed, and the TV only had 5 working channels, all fuzzy. But for the first time in years, I felt a strange kind of peace. It was the kind that comes after devastation. Not happiness, but quiet. A reset. At 2:03 p.m. She finally played her biggest card. "I told my parents you had a breakdown. You might want to get ahead of it before people start asking questions." I stared at that message for a while, letting the words settle like dust. She wasn't just angry. She was preparing to smear me before I could tell my side. I knew this pattern. She'd done it with her last boyfriend too, the one who left her without warning. She told everyone he was unstable, that he had abandonment issues, that she was worried for his mental health. The irony was, she'd never worried about anyone's mental health a day in her life. But I wasn't surprised. I expected the deflection. I expected the smear campaign. What I didn't expect was what came next. She sent a photo. It was of the living room, the space where we used to sit on opposite ends of the couch, both scrolling on our phones in cold silence. But in the photo, all of the empty spots where my things had been were now filled. Badly. Rushed. As if she tried to cover my absence with junk from the basement. Books she never read. A lamp from the guest room. Even a decorative bowl we'd thrown out last year, now placed exactly where my speaker system used to be. And under the photo, she wrote, "See? Nothing's missing. You're replaceable." That one hit harder than I expected. Not because it was true, but because it was exactly how she saw me. Not as a person. Not as a husband. As a placeholder. A utility. Background noise she got used to tuning out. But even then, I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my notes app and started typing everything she had sent me since the night she left. Every manipulative message, every threat, every breadcrumb she dropped that pointed to her guilt. I compiled it not for revenge, but for proof. Because if she was going to play this game in public, I wanted the receipts. And somewhere in the middle of all this, I realized something strange. I didn't miss her, not even a little. What I missed was the version of myself that used to believe this was love. 3 days passed before I saw her in person again. I had expected anger, maybe even staged tears, but what I didn't expect was how rehearsed she looked. Like someone walking into a courtroom with a smile, confident the jury would see things her way. She showed up at my motel, unannounced, wearing that same soft blue sweater she used to use when she wanted to appear vulnerable. It was the one she'd worn when we moved in together, when we signed the lease and promised to build a life. Back then, it meant something. Now it looked like a costume. I didn't invite her in. I stood in the doorway, one hand on the knob, letting the wind do most of the talking. Her first words were a half-laugh, like she still couldn't believe I'd had the audacity to leave. "This is where you've been staying?" she asked, looking around like the peeling paint on the motel walls was beneath her. "I didn't ask you to come," I said. My voice didn't shake. For once, she sighed like I was the one being difficult. "Can we talk somewhere less pathetic?" That stung more than I wanted it to, but I didn't flinch. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, and we stood there in the motel parking lot, surrounded by vending machines and buzzing neon. "You humiliated me," she began. "You made it look like I cheated." I tilted my head. "You did cheat." She rolled her eyes. "That's not the point." That sentence, I swear, hit harder than any truth she'd ever avoided. She genuinely believed the damage wasn't in what she did, but in the fact that I didn't cover for her, didn't keep up appearances, didn't let her lie her way out of it like always. "You think this is about the party?" she continued. "It's been over for a long time and you know it. You're just mad I stopped pretending." That was the moment I realized she wasn't here to apologize. She wasn't here to fix anything. She came to reclaim control, to put me back in the little corner of her life where I was useful, predictable, soft. But something inside me had shifted. "You should go," I said. She blinked, confused. "That's it? You're giving up on us?" "There's no us. There never really was," I replied, and it was the first time I said it like I actually believed it. She tried again, her voice softening, like velvet over broken glass. "You don't mean that. You're just hurt. We can go home, figure things out." "You already figured it out," I said. "You just forgot to tell me." Her face dropped. The sweater act was over. Her lips curled slightly, that same venomous twist I'd seen 100 times before. "You think anyone's going to believe your version? You're the one who ran off." That's when I handed her the envelope. Printed messages, photos, timeline, every manipulation, every carefully archived moment she thought would vanish when I left. She didn't take it at first, just stared at it like it was a bomb. Maybe it was. "You made sure I had no voice," I said. "Now I do." She snatched it out of my hand, her fingers trembling. "You're pathetic." "No," I said quietly. "I was. Now I'm just done." She turned and walked away, fast at first, then slower when she realized I wasn't following. She didn't look back, and I didn't watch her go, because I wasn't staying in that motel another night. I had somewhere else to be. I checked out of the motel the next morning without leaving a trace. No note, no forwarding address. I paid cash. I left the key on the nightstand. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about what she would do or how she would spin the story. I was done playing the man who absorbed the damage just to keep things looking intact on the outside. I drove aimlessly for hours. Small towns, back roads, no GPS, just me, a bag of clothes, and a silence I wasn't used to. But it wasn't the uncomfortable kind. It was the kind that sits on your chest and tells you, this is what peace could look like, if you let it. I turned off my phone completely, not just the volume. The thought of her calling again, or worse, pretending she still had any hold on me, made my skin crawl. But I didn't disappear into obscurity. No, that wasn't enough. I didn't want revenge. But I did want the truth to outlive her version of it. So I mailed one more envelope. Not to her, but to someone who always believed her over me, her mother. Inside it, I included a copy of the message thread, the photo of Dahlia and Corbin from the party, and a short note written in plain, tired handwriting. I loved your daughter. I stayed longer than I should have. This is what she gave me in return. Please don't contact me. This is not a plea for pity, just clarity. I'll never know if her mother read it, or if it changed anything. I didn't do it for a reaction. I did it because I was tired of being the shadow she painted on her wall of victimhood. And I knew she'd feel it, that subtle erosion of her perfect image. Dahlia didn't fear consequences. She feared exposure. I started rebuilding slowly. I rented a studio apartment in a town she'd never think to look. It wasn't much, but the locks were mine, the keys were mine, and no one rolled their eyes at the way I made soup or left socks on the couch. I got a job at a second-hand bookstore. Quiet, slow, surrounded by things people still cared enough to hold on to. I didn't tell anyone my story. Not yet. I let the dust settle inside me first. But I kept her messages. Not because I needed them anymore, but because I wanted to remember the exact moment I stopped being afraid of being alone. About a week after she showed up at the motel, I turned my phone back on. Dozens of messages rolled in, most of them old. Her tone had shifted again. No longer aggressive or smug, but desperate. Pleas disguised as apologies. Vague, I made mistakes language without ever naming what she did. Then a photo of our living room, empty now, captioned with, "It's not the same without you." And for a flicker of a second, I felt that old urge again, the pull of guilt, the need to comfort, to respond, to smooth it over like I always had. But I didn't reply. Instead, I smiled. Not out of spite, but because I knew she had finally realized something. I wasn't the one who was replaceable. It's been 6 months now. Funny how fast time passes once you stop waiting for someone to treat you like you matter. My days look nothing like they used to. No passive-aggressive silences. No walking on eggshells. No pretending that love is supposed to feel like guilt and guessing games. I still think about her sometimes. Not with hate. Not even with sadness. Just clarity. I finally see her for who she was. Not a monster. Just a person who needed control more than connection. And I was the perfect project until I wasn't. I've built something new for myself. It's small, but it's mine. I made friends who don't ask me to shrink to fit. I read books without being mocked. I go for walks without checking my phone every 10 minutes. I've learned to enjoy my own company, and that was the real turning point. A few weeks ago, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. It said, "I was wrong. About everything. If you ever want to talk, I'm here." I didn't respond. Not because I hate her, but because the man she's writing to, the soft, broken version of me she thought would always wait, doesn't live here anymore. I've changed. Not out of revenge. Not to prove a point. But because I finally realized I deserved better than being someone's placeholder. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't unstable. I was just done waiting for her to notice I was worth staying for. And if she's reading this now, maybe she finally does. But that's no longer my problem. Now it's your turn. What was your turning point? Was there one moment in this story that hit a nerve? Drop it in the comments below. And don't forget, this is Reddit Confessions, where your story finally gets to be told the way it should. If you felt something reading this, hit subscribe. There's more truth where this came from.